Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's Friday again, and this time it's Parashat Balak. As you can tell, Baruch Hashem, I'm on vacation, and yet the parasha continues. In our parasha, we have the famous story of Balak ben Zippor, the king of Moab, hiring the sorcerer Bilam from Aram to come and curse the Jewish people, in many ways trying to deal with the threat of conquest. The Jewish people now, after leaving Egypt, were threatening the kingdom of Moab, the kingdom of Midian as well, and Balak brings in Bilam to try and deal with this threat using sorcery, witchcraft, cursing, and trying to, in many ways, defeat the Jewish people through these means. Beautifully, the story in the parasha, by the way, I highly recommend that you read through the parasha, if not in Hebrew, then at least in English, because it truly is one of the great stories in the Tanakh. Ad kedei kach that it even says explicitly in the Gemara that Moshe Rabbeinu purposefully wrote Sifro Parashat Balak. Parashat Bilam, that this is a story that Moshe Rabbeinu was put a lot of effort into writing, obviously, at the behest of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this story, and is highly recommended to learn it. There was even tradition that the Jewish people in the Second Temple period would read this every single day, or at least parts of it, to remind ourselves of the love that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God has for the Jewish people, because He saved us even from these challenges that are seemingly in the realm of spirituality as well. Famously in the story, Bilam, who is some sort of sorcerer / prophet, and there's a whole interesting discussion in Jewish philosophy exactly how can a non-Jew be a prophet of God. There's a whole question of how does that work, and yet that's something I refer you to all of those sources. For those interested, feel free to message me and I'll send you the sources directly. But Bilam is very clearly working for God. And he has conversations with God through dreams, through prophecies, and God basically tells him, listen, this is not something that I'm interested in you doing. And he says, yeah, but I really, really want to. And so Hashem says, okay, fine, go ahead, but I will put into your mouth what you shall say. Literally, you will be my conduit, you will be my voice. And whatever God, and Bilam is very true to this. He tells Balak, who hires him, whatever God tells me to say, I will say. I am just a channel. And Balak gets very frustrated with this because lo and behold, instead of giving curses to the Jewish people, Bilam gives them blessings. And these blessings are quite famous. Some of them have worked their way into our liturgy, Matovu Alecha Yaakov, and so on and so forth, Mishka and Tech Israel. And there are all sorts of messages here that resonate throughout Jewish history with regard to the Messiah, Derech Kochav Mi'akov, referring to Bar Kochva, and so on and so forth, potentially in the future. So the prophecies of Bilam are very important in Jewish tradition. But if you read the story through, if you read through the parasha, as I did, you will find I noticed, and again, my father always likes to say, every time he reads the parasha, he feels like someone snuck something in here that wasn't here last time, and I felt the same way this time. When reading through the parasha, I noticed that there were two words that kept jumping out at me. These two words are incredibly common in our parasha, but not incredibly common in the Tanakh. And these two words often seem to be, as is often the case in Tanakh, seem to be themes in the parasha, that if you follow them through, you'll find this thread throughout our story that teaches us something incredibly important. In German, they call this a Leitwort, which means a special, in Hebrew, milah mancha, a special word, which is a clue, which if you keep following the breadcrumbs throughout the parasha, if you keep following the clues, we will find an incredible, incredible idea. The two words are ein and peh, eyes and mouth. And indeed, these words often come together with the two actions that come together with this. Eyes is sight, seeing, as indeed the very first word of our parasha is Vayar Balak ben Zippor, and Balak ben Zippor saw. So there's every time it mentions seeing or looking out across upon or glancing or gazing, all of these mentions are very much connected to the concept of the eye. And alternatively, there is the mouth, peh. Everything to do with speaking, addressing, announcing, prophesying, all of these different things that are used with the mouth. And I'm not going to go through the whole parasha. This is something that I highly recommend you do, whether in shul tomorrow or by yourself. Read through the parasha and note every single time it uses the word ein or uses the word peh, because they appear in random places. Bil'am, for example, is described as shtum ein, as blocked, as in many ways he may have prophetic sight, but he doesn't have actual sight. God, in one of the unique twists of the story, opens the mouth of Bil'am's donkey, and the Bil'am's donkey starts talking to him. Vayiftach et pi ha'aton. Again, we have peh, pi, the mouth of, peh, the mouth of the aton, pi ha'aton. If you actually read through the story, you will find multiple mentions of this. And the question is, why? Why is this whole parasha all about the eye and the mouth? What is the combination of the two? What is the uniqueness of kinekisait ein haaretz and all of these other mentions? Ein, not a word very common in Tanakh, and yet very common in our story. I think, and again, this is a great setup. I don't know if my recommendation or takeaway will be worth it, but it's definitely something to think about. I'd be very open to hear others. I think one of the messages of our parasha is that these two tools that we use to interact with our surroundings, the eye, sight, and the mouth, speech, are tools that need to be mastered with proper appreciation of their power. As famously Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu at the burning bush is worried about his own ability to talk to the people, Hashem says, Mi sam peh ba'adam. Who gives man a mouth to speak? The fact that we even have the power of speech is itself a gift. The animal kingdom does not have the power of speech. We do. We need to use our speech properly. Same thing, by the way, with sight. And actually, if we think about it, in Judaism, there are two concepts that are called good and bad. There's Lashon Hara and Lashon Hatov. There's good speech and bad speech. And there's Ein Hara and Ein Hatov. There is a bad eye, the evil eye, and the good eye. And Chazal beautifully tie in the Bil'am very strongly with these two themes. And I think it's very much based on the Psukim themselves, as we just mentioned. The idea of, do we view the world and do we describe the world? Do we interact with the world through a positive lens or a negative lens? Are we constantly looking for the bad and describing the bad and speaking badly and at the end of the day, speech describes and sometimes even creates the reality that we live. We all know this from our friends, so that we all have that one friend who every time we speak to them, we're always coming out feeling a bit icky because for some reason they just have a negative attitude and it comes across in speech. Are we people who try and view the world and try and create the world, describe the world, live the world through a positive lens or a negative lens? Bil'am is the archetype of trying to use the negative lens, trying to look for the bad, trying to focus in on the negative, to curse, to criticize. And Chazal developed this idea very strongly, that Bil'am was able to really tune into the negativity of the universe, and that was his special dark power. And God reversed that. God put into his mouth the good speech, matovu alecha Yaakov, instead of bad, tov. And I think that is the power that we find in our parasha. Use speech, use sight, but instead of using it to try and find the negative, find the darkness, find the light, find the positives. At the end of the day, the way that we interact with the world, the way that we feel, very often depends on the way that we try and interpret the world. Do we interpret it? Obviously, we don't want to interpret it through, rose-tinted glasses and see everything as positive. There's negative as well. But in order to appreciate the light, with all of the shadows that it entails, we still have to search for it. We We still have to make sure that we are coming with Ein Tovah, with Lashon Hatov. If we can do that, I feel that we can take the positive from this parasha and beautifully to end up. These two ideas, the eye and the mouth, have names in Hebrew. In Hebrew, their names are Ein and Pei. And beautifully, in the Hebrew alphabet, there are two letters that are not just letters, but their words, the description of the letter, is a word itself. And those are the two letters, Ein and Fei. And they come next to each other. Ein and Fei. Ein, gematria obviously 70, Pei, gematria 80. What comes next? Tzadik, 90. If we can try and fix our Ein and fix our Pei, then we are eligible for the next letter, which is Tzadik, Tzadi, which is righteousness, which is truth, which is the positive. If we can do those two things, if we can fix the Ein and the Pei, we are in essence leading ourselves. That is the pathway forwards towards Tzaddik. There's a little vignette at the end, and I will leave you with that and wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and Bezrat Hashem, for all of those on vacation, happy vacation. Shabbat Shalom. And of course, Tzom Kal.